It is 6:30 on Monday, December 11th. We're here for the regular meeting of the East Bay Charter Township Board, and we'll call the meeting to order. And with that, if you'll join me at the Pledge of Allegiance to begin the meeting. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Ann, would you do roll call attendance?
Bartlett.
Yes.
Lyle.
Here.
Cook.
Here.
Cortate.
Here.
Walters.
Present.
And Friend.
Here.
And absent and excused is Matt Cortate.
Okay. All right, with that, we will take a look at the agenda. First with look to review for conflict, which you have on the agenda. Traditional items, consent calendar. With that, the meeting dates for next year, the tax collection for the schools, an offer of part-time employment for the ambulance, the ClearGov software, and then business before the Township Board with discussion is Traverse Connect, the Commercial Corridor Improvement Study and Regional Business Trends Report, the Beach District Visioning Proposal and Coastal Zone Management Grant Agreement, zoning amendments, 323 and 423, and then a resolution amending the Resolution 2023-35, which was our fiscal year 2024 wages. With that, I am going to ask, by the way, that if we can move the items B and C before A, and I've cleared that with both Traverse Connect and Claire before the meeting. Let's see. The agenda went out with those items, and it was updated on 12/9, and you'll notice those are with the asterisks, and those are the part-time employment, the software agreement, and the coastal zone management agreement. We were kind of waiting for some of those to come in. So with that, is there any conflict of interest declared by a board member? Okay, is there approval of the agenda?
Support.
Okay, motion by Lyle, support by Walters to approve the agenda as presented. Any further discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by no? Okay, we'll move forward with this agenda. Public comment. It is the time for public comment. So we have pretty limited people here, the public here in the meeting. So, Ann, I think I will save you from the long litany. And with that, we'll ask if anyone has public comment, just to come on and make your way up to the podium and share with us your perspective. Okay, seeing none, we'll move on. You do have correspondence and reports. Those are in your packet. That also does have another, a Traverse Connect, which has their new regional economic ecosystem report. So I did just want to point that out too. And I think of interest to you guys too might be those 2023 surplus disposal results. So, and the trucks obviously are still have some days to complete, and they're out front, and they're on public surplus. So we'll let you know what happens with those. Any other questions on correspondence and reports? Okay, with that, we'll move to consent agenda. Ann, would you go over the consent agenda?
Certainly. The purpose of the consent agenda is to expedite business by grouping non-controversial items together to be dealt with by one board motion without discussion. Any member of the board, staff, or the public may ask that any item on the consent agenda be removed and placed elsewhere on the agenda for full discussion. Such requests will be automatically respected. If any item is not removed from the consent agenda, the action noted in parentheses on the agenda is approved by a single board action adopting the consent calendar. This evening, you have the minutes of November 13th, 2023. Recommend approval. From the general fund, check numbers 18310 through 18348 in the amount of $431,407.87. In the emergency fund, check numbers 5479 through 5494 in the amount of $64,767.69. In the receiving fund, check numbers 2920 through 2921 in the amount of $302,075.05, with check number 2917 previously approved. Escrow fund, check numbers 1977 through 1983 in the amount of $16,433.61. From the roads SAD fund, there were no checks issued. From the payroll fund, the payroll dated November 5th through November 18th, check number 7581 through 7583, totaled $53,788.85. And the payroll dated November 19th through December 2nd, check number 7584 through 7586, totaled $58,861.95, and the total payroll was $112,650.80, and the total amount paid was $927,335.02. You have no proposed budget adjustments. You have a resolution establishing meeting dates and times for the Board of Trustees, January through December 2024, an agreement between Northern Education Services and East Bay Township for the collection of school property taxes for summer of 2024. We have the East Bay Ambulance offer of employment to Lauren Glombowski, and we have ClearGov software service order agreement.
Thank you very much. So just two notes, that resolution under H1 will be 2023-37, if that were to pass with the consent agenda. And also a note on the budget amendments. I was planning on having budget adjustments for you tonight. I saw two out there. One had to do with the truck, the recent truck purchase, and the other was making sure we were all in alignment with the BS&A payments for the upgrade. Didn't get to those today with all of the BS&A was going on. So we do have that meeting on December 19th. So we'll just put any budget adjustments just as a quick agenda item before that joint meeting. So with that, is there anything that anyone would like removed from the consent agenda?
Not asking for it to be removed, just a quick question on collecting the tax for the school. What are we getting per parcel?
$250.
Same thing we've been getting? Okay.
Same thing the state will pay, so.
Thank you.
Okay. Any member of the public would like anything removed from the consent agenda? Okay, we'll bring that back to the board. Is there a motion?
Make a motion to accept the consent agenda as presented.
Is there support? Okay, motion by Bartlett, support by Escortade. Further discussion? And we'll do a roll call vote.
Bartlett?
Yes.
Escortade?
Yes.
Walters?
Yes.
Lyle?
No.
Cook?
Yes.
Friend?
Yes. Okay, let's see. We'll move on to business before the Township Board. As I mentioned, we're going to move those agenda items up. So B, we'll go to 8B first. Claire, if you want to hop up here and talk with us a little bit about the Beach District Visioning Proposal and that Coastal Zone Management Agreement. We were, as I mentioned to you in an earlier email, before the agenda change, we were kind of wanting to hold that off until we had the grant agreement before we asked you to approve any agreement with it.
Okay, good evening, everyone. So as you likely are aware and recall, the township secured two federal grants in 2023 to support the beach visioning effort. One is the Michigan Coastal Management Program, and that grant agreement is included, and then also USDA's Rural Development Grant. So the Coastal Management Program grant, the Coastal Management Program is providing $74,250, and they're requiring a 50% match. So the local match is $74,250. Beta has offered to provide $4,000 of that, so the township would be providing the remaining $70,000. USDA Rural Development provided a grant of $94,000 with no match required. So just kind of a big picture summary on the financials. This whole visioning project effort is going to be $242,500 with $70,000 of township match. So it's super exciting. We kind of rescoped it a little bit with the additional funds that we received. And we added in like some quarterly breakfasts that we've already kicked off with businesses along the corridor and with some educational opportunities. It's been a really positive experience so far, so we're excited to keep moving with that. The Township also recently issued 2 RFPs to support this effort. One is for the visioning, and then the other one is for marketing and branding. So the marketing and branding, the RFP was issued a few weeks ago. It closes on December 22nd. And that's for help with design of the banners, the utility pole banners that we're going to have along the corridor for Welcome to the East Bay Beach District, the website to help promote businesses along the corridor, as well as like marketing materials that would be like maps, brochures that different businesses can have at their front desk, restaurants, to help cross-promote one another, promote Beta, promote TART, kind of all of the different entities on that corridor. So that RFP will likely be coming back to you for a recommendation for a consultant for that one at the January meeting. But for this meeting, we are recommending a visioning consultant. So the visioning process, we have about $100,000 for this visioning effort, so it's a pretty large, pretty heavy lift. It includes public visioning, facilitating stakeholder meetings, large community engagement sessions. There's going to be a design charrette, which is multi-day, multiple meetings. There's going to be some conceptual design renderings for public infrastructure improvements, as well as the engineering feasibility of those improvements. So thinking lighting, streetscaping, those types of things, crosswalks, access to the water, as well as visions for private sites and redevelopment of those private sites. So like a third space, is there opportunity for, public gathering, like improvements on some of the priority redevelopment sites that are privately owned. And we're identifying some different properties where there's willing property owners that would like to have the public help inform the redevelopment of those sites and a vision. So the RFP also included development of an implementable action plan for the corridor that details goals, actions, timeline, as well as achievable financing mechanisms. And the financing piece is really important to kind of figure out how we're going to pay for these improvements. So we've set up an implementation team. We have 12 members that's made up of business owners as well as some of our agency partners along the corridor. And they are going to be helping inform the public engagement process, as well as helping us figure out the financing of the action plan and how to make it implementable and achievable. So going back to the RFP for the visioning, we received 4 submissions. All of the consultant teams were well qualified. They had worked on similar projects across the state of Michigan. The proposals were reviewed by that Beach District implementation team, so we sent it out to everyone on the implementation team. They kind of reviewed it with a matrix, made a recommendation, and then we also had a smaller subcommittee that reviewed, that met in person and reviewed the proposals. It included myself, our CEDAM fellow, Sam LaSouza, Carl Ferguson, our planning commissioner, and Bill Clark with Beta. And so the subcommittee arrived at a consensus to recommend the contract to Beckett and Rader. That was also the firm that rose to the highest level from the implementation team and their matrix that they provided. The basis for this decision when the subcommittee met was Beckett and Rader's emphasis on the visual rendering. So there's real strong emphasis on like visually what can the corridor, like how can we create, how can we kind of reconfigure, what could it look like in the future? So really helping bring the public, the business, create this vision and like a visual depiction of what that can look like, as well as landscape architecture expertise, and then the design charrette that they're proposing. It's like a 3 to 5 day intensive kind of quick feedback loops, multiple meetings where you have different renderings, and you get input and kind of make on-the-fly changes based on the feedback and kind of come with a final recommendation. So, as well as local presence and the comparative hourly rates with the other firms. So that's the recommendation. Happy to answer any questions on the contract, the project in general, the proposal, but you'll see there's two actions in front of you. One is to approve the contract with Coastal Management Program, and the other one is for the working with Beckett and Rader for the visioning process.
I just wanted to add two notes on there. One is that as a board, you've received all proposals that were submitted through that RFP process. And then also, the $70,000 that is in the match for this has already been budgeted in. The grant proceeds and the expenses have been paced out and put into the budgets for a little bit was in 2023, primarily in 24 and 25. So, any questions for Claire?
I guess I do have a question on the banners, and maybe you haven't got this far. They're gonna be, I'm assuming this is gonna be like the city's got, and they'll be changed, maybe different seasons or whatever.
So we are kind of in that initial scoping process of what that's going to look like. We anticipate that we're going to take these funds to cover a first few rounds of banners that would potentially be seasonal, but then the banners in the future would be kind of self-sustaining. Like, for example, Horse Shows by the Bay has indicated interest in, sponsoring a banner, so it could be East Bay Beach District, along with an additional entity that helps sponsor the cost of the
Are these banners
banners.
gonna be similar to like the city's got up on the light pole?
Yep, exactly. Britain Banners is gonna.
Okay, and my
is gonna-
question is, are we gonna be responsible for changing them, the township?
I believe that Britain Banners does all the installation, and we will certainly, either it'll be a contract with Britain or another
Okay.
entity to do the installation.
Yeah, and we did remember you had previously asked that question, and so one of the things, as you mentioned, and Claire did, we're just on the initial part of kind of figuring out all of those details on that.
Sam has gone out, done kind of an inventory of all of the light poles, which ones are suitable for a banner, because just with all the utilities and wires, it's not all of them are conducive to a banner, but has identified them and is working with consumers and Light and Power on the permitting process.
Well, my thought, I just want to make sure how tall a ladder we had to get for you so you go up.
Oh, yeah.
And by
Good thinking.
the way, I want to see you tell Dan he has to change all of those. Other questions? Okay, is there a motion? You do have a suggested motion at the bottom, which is to move to approve, deny changes, the Coastal Zone Management Grant Agreement and the contract with Beckett and Rader to lead the East Bay Beach District visioning effort and develop an implementable action plan for the district for an amount not to exceed $97,215.
I'll make that motion.
I'll support it.
Okay, the motion is made by Walters and supported by Bartlett. Any further discussion? Okay, those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by no? Okay, excellent. Really appreciate your hard work on this. As you can hear from everything that Claire goes through, she really likes to rest on her laurels and encourage everybody else to, and doesn't push them to do more and better, so we appreciate that. All right, we'll move on to C1, which is the zoning amendment 323.
Okay. And we do have MD&R here. They are the applicant for this zoning amendment, and it was precipitated on MD&R, the state park. They own the 29-acre property just south of the state park and are interested in connecting those properties for future headquarters and some limited, not looking to put campsites there, but some limited trails and kind of low-impact activities back there, but moving their headquarters back to that parcel. So they, looking at our ordinance, we didn't technically allow any type of stream crossing, vehicular stream crossing, because we've got that structure setback from the stream. And so this ordinance amendment is basically would allow a vehicular crossing in all zoning districts in the township pending Eagle approval. And so we added it on to the existing section 238, which allows for pedestrian stream crossings. So similar standards for most of those, and relying on Eagle engineering review as well as their environmental review. The Planning Commission held a public hearing on November 7th for this ordinance amendment. They unanimously recommended it to the board for approval. Mindy's here to answer any questions. Paul is here as well, so.
Okay, very good. And what we are looking for is action on zoning amendment 323 of the vehicular stream crossing. And I do see that that was a unanimous conclusion with the Planning Commission, correct?
That's correct, yep.
Okay, Mindy, did you want to add any input on that?
Just that we looked at the pedestrian crossing not too long ago, and at that time, I just feel like we didn't consider vehicle crossings. Claire's looking at me like I'm crazy, but I don't remember talking about vehicular crossings at that time. We were really focused on the trail system and getting the bike trail across the water bodies. So we talked about doing this only on public lands, but as you can see in the discussion, the attorney suggested that that would be problematic in the future, potentially. So that's why we changed it to parcels in all
Okay.
zoning districts.
Okay, great. And I would note, too, that in those minutes, it does show that all the Planning Commission members were present, too. Paul, did you want to add anything in particular?
No, I just yield to Mindy.
Okay, very good, thank you. Does the board have any questions on this proposed zoning amendment?
That it makes sense. This way, private citizens, if they have a stream on their property, they're not just driving through it, because there isn't a process in place for a bridge crossing to be put in. So to me, it makes sense.
Yep, absolutely.
Does the DNR have something to say?
Who's here from the,
Stephanie is.
oh, I didn't see her back there. How are you doing? Did you have anything to add?
I don't think so.
Okay, very good, thank you. Any other questions or comments?
I'm just curious, anybody that's got some history with this, have there been any applications in recent memory for a stream crossing, or obviously the zoning restricts them, but has anybody requested this at any time in the recent past?
Well, so we did have the one with the trails recently,
Right.
because we didn't have any crossings. But if you look at the crossings that already exist, there's several that already are existing in the township. It just wasn't allowed under our zoning as it was. So there's several that exist. There's a process at Eagle to get a stream crossing, so, we're really relying on that.
Okay.
I do know when I was on the Planning Commission, when Brookside went in, part of their, I think it's Brookside, part of their parcel goes on the other side of the creek, and there's actually,
Yes.
there was a house back there, I don't know if it's still there, but they couldn't develop across that because they couldn't improve that crossing. That was my recollection. I don't know if they went on to, DNR or Eagle to try and get that. I don't know where it stands now, but I do know that was a discussion we had at that time.
Okay.
Okay, is there, if there are no further questions or clarifications, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the zoning amendment 3-23 vehicular stream crossing.
Support.
Okay, there is a motion by Cook and plenty of support. We'll do Portaid. Motion, yeah. Any further discussion? Sorry, threw me off for a second. I was trying to think M or S or M or,
After
No.
43 years, it really doesn't.
Okay, with that, motion by Cook, support by Escortade. We'll do a roll call vote, Ann?
Cook,
Yes.
Escortade,
Yes.
Bartlett,
Yes.
Lyle,
Yes.
Walters,
Yes.
and Friend.
Yes. Okay, with that, we'll move on to zoning amendment 4-23, which is the regional business stream setback. Claire, do you want to cover this one?
Sure. So, current zoning ordinance, which we're in the process of rewriting, has a discrepancy regarding the stream setback in the regional business district. So there's a couple sections where it states that the required setback is 50 feet for an MDNR designated trout stream. That's found in section 412.6C. It's also reflected on the future land use map, and it's also shown in the zoning district map. However, there's a footnote in section 412 that states that the setback is 100 feet. It appears to be a typo carried over from other districts, which requires the 100-foot setback. But we did bring it to attention to the Planning Commission because there's a developer interested in developing a parcel at 3 Mile and US 31 that would require a setback. And I said, I'm not comfortable making a determination as staff as to whether to adhere to that footnote that says 100 feet or the other locations that say 50 feet. So brought it to the Planning Commission as kind of an administrative amendment, just to clarify, with the understanding that we are going through the full zoning ordinance rewrite and looking, more comprehensively at waterfront setbacks throughout the entire township and putting mechanisms and protections in place. So there was quite a bit of discussion at the Planning Commission level about, moving this forward. Moving this forward would kind of continue the status quo, or kind of the status of how developments have been approved in the past, using that same, kind of the same guidelines, the same expectations that property owners have come to expect in this district, because that's kind of been the expectation over the years. However, at the same time, planning commissioners, I think part of the hesitation, and Paul and Mindy are both here and can speak to it, but there was discussion about, can we move the riparian zoning standards that we're developing right now forward more quickly, so that we have some protections in place for this future development, that we have more specific vegetative buffer requirements. Like, we're looking at having kind of an active planting requirement that requires woody vegetation and in that first 35 feet. And so right now, we have the setback requirements, but we don't have a lot of details about what would be in that vegetative buffer. So this amendment, the thought behind this amendment and the intent is to clarify an inconsistency, and from what we can tell was a typo, but both Mindy and Paul are here and can answer questions as well.
Two quick questions for you, Claire. On that stream setback, of course, things, one jurisdiction next to another jurisdiction next to another. What are other jurisdictions with their stream setbacks?
So I looked at them like a few months ago. Long Lake Township is 50 feet, I believe. Acme Township, I believe, is 50 feet. Garfield Township is 50 feet for residential, and I believe they're 75 feet setback for commercial.
Okay.
Traverse City is way less, just given their kind of urban patterns. And I know they're looking at their riparian standards in the coming year, but I think they're 15 feet or something.
So my understanding, when you're talking about the woody vegetation within the 50-foot, what you're really talking about then is a quality 50-foot setback versus 100-foot setback with, quality versus quantity. Is that what I'm understanding?
Traditionally allowed like parking lots and stuff in that setback, and that's since been corrected in the ordinance to specify a parking lot as a structure, so, parking lots are no longer permitted, but yeah, it's making sure that that 50 feet is high-quality woody vegetation, actively planting, as opposed to just kind of turf grass.
Okay, with that, I'm going to ask Mindy and then Paul if they have any input as well. Mindy, of course, this does mention here that there was some discussion and not a unanimous vote, which is fine, and the motion still stands of the action of the majority. Obviously, we all understand that. All of the planning commissioners were present, but I do want to give each of you just a chance to mention anything if you would care to. Mindy, I'll have Mindy go first and then Paul.
I'll let Paul go.
Okay. Paul?
I really have nothing to add. I think Claire kind of gave you the best summary. It's really a situation where we had this one footnote that seemed to be in conflict, and this is just an opportunity to clear that up between now and when we actually have the new ordinance coming through.
Okay. All right, very good, thank you. Any other questions, clarifications from other board members?
Just to be clear, you had mentioned the correction about parking lots being structures within that setback, so that's no longer allowed, so,
Correct. Yep.
okay.
Other questions, comments? Okay, what the request is, the recommendation, is a move to approve zoning amendment 4-23 regional business stream setback. Is there a motion?
We'll move.
Is there support?
Support.
There's a motion by Lyle and support by Bartlett. Further discussion?
Is there, we talked about, I guess, what I just asked about the parking lot not being a part of that 50-foot buffer, and the new zoning changes are going to, the riparian district is going to change some of what's required in that buffer. Are other things allowed to be in there? You mentioned turf within that 50-foot buffer, snow storage, those types of things. Would those be allowed?
That's a good question, and we are still in the process of kind of differentiating between the regional business district and the Lakes area district, with the acknowledgement that it's higher intensity in the business district, but the intent for both of those is really just vegetation as natural as possible. So I could see snow storage potentially being permitted within that vegetative buffer, but another, like a waterside deck is permitted, 200 square feet impervious, but for the most part, not much of anything else.
Okay.
The reason that I voted no at the planning commission level is I don't think it goes far enough. I think we need to add those things that we're talking about for the zoning rewrite now to get those, that discussion of vegetation, natural vegetation into the amendment right now, whereas right now you can mow right up to it, right? So that's a big difference between natural vegetation
And to speak to that point a little bit, do you want to give kind of a time frame that we're looking at? Of course, this is a moving target, so, but Claire, so don't put it on your calendar, but just to give you an idea.
So we are planning to have a full draft for the zoning ordinance subcommittee to review early January. And then after they review that, it's going to come in front of the planning commission, the full draft of the zoning ordinance. There's going to be 3 work sessions, so 3 special meetings. That would be a 3-month period of reviewing the ordinance in chunks. There'll be a public hearing after that, and then a recommendation to the township board. We anticipate that there will be a joint study session between the township board and the planning commission, probably after the planning commission reviews the full ordinance, but before the public hearing, just for an opportunity for both boards to meet and review. So I would say our optimistic timeline would be spring, late spring, early summer adoption is what we're looking at.
Okay. There is a motion by Lyle and support by Bartlett. Further discussion? Okay, and we'll do a roll call vote.
Lyle?
Yes.
Bartlett?
Yes.
Cook?
Yes.
Escorted?
Yes.
Walters?
No.
Friend?
Yes. All right, thank you very much, Claire. You feel free to take a break at any time and give the rest of us a little break in some of this work. Okay. With that, we will move on to Traverse Connect. And Warren Call is here, as well as Camille Hoisington. Did I get that right, Camille? Okay, very good. So with that, I will turn it over. I will just mention real quickly, you'll remember that it was just about a year ago, Warren was in front of us talking about a potential contract with Traverse Connect. And so we're here to see some of the results of their efforts. And thank you for being here, and we appreciate it.
Thanks very much. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for having us. It's a pleasure to be with you and to have worked on some of these things. It was actually great to go after Claire, because so many of the things that she's working on and the township is considering there interact with some of the recommendations we have for you in our report. And I'd be remiss if I didn't say that it's been a great productive partnership working with Beth, Claire, and as well as Sam on all aspects of this project. So as Beth indicated, this is the kind of the end of the first year of a service agreement that we brought before you last year at this time. And that service agreement covered some very specific things that are called out in our corridor improvement study that we'll go over here in a minute. That service agreement also detailed some more general things that we're doing for economic development projects and initiatives across the region. So we did include, as you saw earlier in your consent agenda, the ecosystem report that was issued a couple weeks ago. So what we thought we would do is start with just a couple of quick overview items from that ecosystem report, just detailing some of our broader initiatives, and then we'll get into the details of the commercial corridor improvement study. So with that, and then of course time for questions at the end, and we could talk about further initiatives for next year as well. So with that, I'll hand it over to Camille to touch on a couple of things from the ecosystem report.
Thank you, Warren. All right, I won't go through the full 20 pages of the ecosystem report with you, but a general overview. So the intention of this ecosystem report is to detail our overall partnership with the public sector and our economic development work for the Grand Traverse region as a whole. So it highlights our work to grow the economy via our business attraction and growth efforts, as well as our talent attraction and retention efforts. So if you go to page 5, you'll see, this is to sort of give you a general overview of where we're at with the economic regional sort of trends. So you'll see all metrics within our dashboard are positive with a green arrow upward trend. Our annual GDP is at almost 70,000 per year with a 2030 goal of 84. Our state average wage percentage is at 87% with a 2030 goal of 90%. Our bachelor's degree or post-secondary certificate attainment is at just over 50% with a 2030 goal of 60%. And then our growth of the prime working age population has grown by 3% with a goal of 5% by 2030. And then also our scientific professional IT jobs, so those more higher paying jobs, are at almost 2,800 with a 2030 goal of 3,200. So overall, a very positive upward trend overall for the economy. These are metrics that we track. On the next page, so pages 6 through 7, you'll also see detailed results of our Business Growth Barometer survey. So this is a survey that we send out obviously every quarter. They're very simple surveys that we send out to our business community, and they're aimed at providing a snapshot of the regional business sentiment, the outlook, the current challenges that businesses are facing. And what those surveys do is they inform Traverse Connect of our strategic priorities, and they help us to respond to the needs of the business community. So they're very informative, insightful. And it's a very simple survey. So it asks 2 questions. It asks, is our region a good place to grow your business? And is our region improving as a place to grow your business? So you'll see that the results of the survey show a trend over time, which it reflects a general uptick in sentiment. So the respondents overwhelmingly agree that the Grand Traverse region is a good place to grow their business, with that trend growing upwards, and also an upward trend agreeing that it's improving as a place to grow your business. So overall, the business and employer sentiment remains strong despite obvious ongoing headwinds from staffing and housing challenges, and then not surprisingly, more recently, we've been seeing businesses citing challenges related to inflation and interest rates. So the report also details our focus on some industry-specific cluster development. So that's further on within the report. You'll see there's a very detailed 5-page spread on our blue tech cluster development, which I spoke to you during the summer in more detail about that. But it also goes into some case studies within our other industry cluster focus areas, such as rural health tech, outdoor recreation. And then so there's some case studies, and then we also talk a bit about the work that we've been doing to attract those types of companies to the region and how we do that and how we help them to expand. So again, that report is in your agendas. It's long, but it's great reading, so please do take some time to read through it and reach out to either myself or Warren with questions if you have follow-up questions or thoughts.
Thanks, Neil. And again, just to highlight that is going to be issued biannually, so it'll come out twice a year in the fall and the spring, and that'll be in addition to those quarterly reports that we continue to issue out to our public sector partners and our annual report that comes out in the first quarter of every year. So again, we're happy to take questions on that as well. Now transitioning to the corridor improvement study. So this was the more detailed aspect of our work together this year. It was a feasibility case for East Bay Township, and it really focused on obviously your two key commercial corridors, right? The East Bay Beach District, and then the East Bay Corners area, roughly Hammond Road between Precision Drive and Vanderlip Road. And we wanted to get into the details in each one of these corridors, so we'll take them in stride. But on page 3, it really, key issues and solutions identified in this study, there's some overarching themes. Both districts have a need for public spaces and recreation spaces. There are underutilized parcels, especially within East Bay Corners. And then both districts can promote usage and activity, especially in specific places where trails and corridor infill could be productive. And then we looked at potential zoning and density changes that you could consider as you try to build out these corridors in a productive way. So I'm going to highlight some selected items in the report. I won't go into detail on every single thing, but happy to take questions. If you have a specific question, just stop me. Anything that we didn't get into as much detail as you'd like, I'm happy to take your direction there. So starting with the East Bay Beach District, the vision for the corridor, as indicated by your strategic planning and by staff, looking for more activity, walkability, resident engagement, kind of more than just a highway with hotels, basically, right? So we looked at areas to provide public space, whether that's a square or a park, more pedestrian access. And so there's a couple of key things that we'll highlight there. The first item on page 4 is working with the Grand Traverse Band of Ottawa and Chippewa Indians on their parcel that is immediately west of Mitchell Creek. That's an area that, by their own admission, and we have spoken with them about it, it is underutilized. We think as you work through the visioning project that Clara just detailed for the Beach District, we think this is a key area that could be activated and leveraged, obviously in a way that respects tribal needs, tribal wishes for that. They have expressed an interest in participating in the visioning project, and I think that there could be an opportunity here to activate it in such a way that it fills both the goals of the tribal nation as well as potentially the beach district visioning goals for public access, public squares, et cetera. So that's one thing that we do believe would be a very beneficial aspect of the zoning and land use changes. The second area is actually something you just dealt with, which is as you look at the DNR's plans for further improvements to the state park parcel, we do believe that as those details are worked through, we would highly encourage discussions with the DNR to incorporate some more pedestrian and cycle access between the north side, US 31, and the south side where the trail is. Specifically, if there's an opportunity as the kind of that southern parcel is developed with potentially, pedestrian walking trail and a creek crossing, is there an opportunity to bring sidewalk and trail access up through that, or alternatively, along the east border of the park, so that there's better connectivity, especially between the trail and the pedestrian bridge on 31. That's the key thing. To be able to activate kind of north-south movement through the district. So that's something that as you work with the DNR on their updates and improvements to their parcels, we think would be a key benefit. The other area that I would focus on, and we've highlighted, is the 4 Mile Road public access. Now, I know this is a small, very small parcel or access point, but we do think that making the most of that small parcel with perhaps, some activation, some cleanup, some beautification of that, some encouragement of the use of that, as well as some connectivity to trails and sidewalks would be beneficial, because it is underutilized, and it's, frankly, a beautiful spot, even albeit being quite a small spot. In that same general area, acquisition potentially of the small parcel that the county road commission owns at the corner of 3 Mile and 31, depending on the development of adjacent parcels, could be an area, again, not huge, but an area to have public access, maybe public gathering space that we think could be beneficial. So those are a couple of things we would suggest you consider. And then in the redevelopment and higher density and mixed use area, we have some zoning updates and some recommended changes, as well as some areas that don't need necessarily zoning changes, but we would encourage the township to incentivize and encourage higher density mixed use development. So we've highlighted a number of those. So kind of at the west end, east and west of the Walgreens parcel, the Einstein bicycle shop section, again with widening sidewalks there as well, and then Bayside Market and some other properties that could really benefit from focused redevelopment. And I won't go into all those details, but happy again to answer questions any of those specifically. The other area we really wanted to highlight in the Beach District is where the conference center and adjacent parking lot are, and this is page 7. This is a very unique location, and there's really, frankly, very few of these kind of underdeveloped parcels left in the district and frankly in the region. And we think that there could be an opportunity for a special development zone. So looking at what that might be, we've tried to incorporate commercial use as well as maybe a third space type of quasi-public use that could be worked out with the property owner. There's what we call maybe a wharf side or a fisherman's village type of development, where you have a mix of first floor retail, event space, maybe upper floor, condo or hotel use. It's really an activation. So if you've ever been, for example, to the fisherman's village in Punta Gorda, Florida, that's just an example of how a spot in a similar fashion has really been activated that provides both commercial and public use. Obviously, that'd be a big undertaking, so you'd have to work with the property owner or the property developer to do that. But we think it could be a really unique and interesting thing to consider. So that's the East Bay Beach District items. Moving on to East Bay Corners, again, some of the requirements here, or the requests, to look at public space, to look at a longer, more infilled corridor feel with higher density, and potentially expanding the township's current definition of what higher density looks like in this corridor. So one of the things that we looked at here, again, looking at areas for public space and trail access, non-motorized access, pedestrian and bicycle. Working with the Grand Traverse Academy to potentially convert their frontage on Hammond, immediately south of the school parking lot, to look at a mix of maybe hardscape and softscape landscaping as a public square opportunity. There's limited opportunity for public square type of development in the corridor, and we think this could be one that is well-suited, being immediately adjacent to the school, being close to the planned pedestrian crossing, the safe routes to school, and where the TART trail hopefully will come south into the district. We think this could be a really good place to activate, potentially a smaller community square. We also think that working with the parcel where the gas station is to the immediate west, if there's an opportunity to carve off a portion of that, maybe in the hardscape realm for, food trucks or something like that, this could be a good opportunity to create more of a public square, public access point that would generate some kind of downtown style activity in the corridor. We also think that there's an opportunity in conjunction with that to work with Alta Vista, the TART Trail, and others in that kind of wetland area to the immediate east of that. If there's an opportunity for an elevated boardwalk, access points to the planned trail coming from the south, we think that could be a really attractive thing for the residents, especially in Alta Vista, but also across the corridor. And the developer at Alta Vista was very interested in that concept. And then probably one of the heaviest lifts in this whole report is the final bullet point on on page 8. Working with the Grand Traverse County Road Commission on the traffic patterns in this corridor. A lot of it seems that, again, a lot of the initiatives that the township has for this region, for this corridor, there's a great opportunity to have more of a kind of a corridor feel, a downtown feel, but that would need to be done in conjunction with traffic calming. And, speed zone reduction, lane reduction, traffic calming, pedestrian crossings, trail crossings. In effect, you don't want this to look like South Airport Road, okay? A commercial development that is more pedestrian friendly. And I think that's important to work on alignment with the road commission, because obviously their goals could potentially be different, right? Faster, get more traffic through that corridor, especially as they consider the Hammond-Hartman Bridge project. We do think that there's an opportunity to have some of Hammond fast, as it were, get from one place to the other in an efficient manner, and then also narrowed in some places to have that more calming effect. In much the same way that 8th Street in Traverse City goes from being, more, pedestrian friendly to then more traffic friendly in different sections. So again, that would be potentially a heavier lift, but if you look at that as well as the development potential of what's at the auto owners and the Henschel property on the other side of 3 Mile, we do think that there's an opportunity to just nothing wrong with South Airport Road, but if you're looking for a real corridor, we need to think about that traffic aspect of it. So transitioning from there to infill density. We've listed several areas that are really already zoned in an appropriate way that would allow for East Bay Corners housing density, mixed-use development. We do think that there's, and I'll deal with this in a second, but we do think there's an opportunity in some of these, as they're already zoned for East Bay Corners, you could look at the density, the housing density details of that and changes. But there's several parcels here that really could be encouraged and promoted for mixed-use development that would really help to infill that entire corridor. And then starting on page 10, we do highlight some parcels for modified zoning potentially. So at the east end of the district on the 4 Mile intersection, There's a parcel that's currently zoned agriculture that we do believe could potentially be rezoned for East Bay Corners and that more infill development. And it would hopefully give a clear distinction. Kind of, it would anchor that east end of the more developed corridor, whereas east of 4 Mile could continue to be more agricultural and low density. And then the 3 parcels on the north side of Hammond, west of Vanderlip, we do believe could potentially be higher density housing on the road frontage as a kind of a transitionary thing where on Hammond it's higher density, and then the parcels just to the north of those 3 parcels are lower density already, so it'd be a good transitionary period. And again, it would infill the corridor in such a way that you really feel like you have this almost downtown feel. So then we gave some details on higher density recommendations on page 11, as well as some examples for what that higher density kind of townhome or manor home style looks like. So again, currently, East Bay Corners, 8 units per acre is the zoning regulations. As you look at zoning regulations in general, but especially in this corridor, we do think that there's a potential for slightly higher. So what's considered, again, townhome or manor home style development of 12 to 18 units per acre. We think that it could be done in such a way that it fits with the character of the corridor, the character of East Bay Township, but it would allow for more density, which we believe would help with a number of your priorities, housing, activation of the corridor, et cetera. And then finally, in this aspect of the report, we've participated, Camille and I, in the East Bay Beach District visioning session so far, and really, and Camille actually helped with the RFP location. We think that there's an opportunity to look at the branding of East Bay Corners as well. You don't need to change the name inside of your zoning regulations, but you could consider a market name, a kind of a branding name. We just threw something out there, East Bay Market District as one example. But we do think that could be something as you develop that corridor further, could be a positive development. I just went through a lot of detail. So maybe before I transition it over to Camille to wrap up the last few things, are there questions or comments or anything you have regarding the corridor improvements?
Go ahead, Glenn.
I guess through both reports here, I didn't want to stop you when you're going through them, but I was kind of taken back and said, what's the single biggest barrier to growing your business? And I was really taken back when it said childcare was only like 4 or 5%. And I guess we've all heard that there just isn't any childcare. So, and I don't know if the younger generation does not have children like they used to, as far as the number, if that was part of it, or it was kind of confusing from what we've heard all along, that there is not enough childcare. And through your research here, we come up with like 4 or 5% is.
Yeah, that's a good question, Commissioner. There's a couple of things. Number one, 2022 results would have seen that percentage higher. And so when we started doing these quarterly surveys, the number for childcare was higher. And I think what you're seeing is a combination of 2 things. One, there have been some improvements in childcare availability. Not a lot, but there have been some. But also, other issues have simply just risen to the top. So if you ask businesses, and I think that top item, staffing, is actually somewhat, not misleading, but it needs more, kind of, you need to dig deeper, because oftentimes the staffing issues that our companies are facing are due to housing and childcare. Mm-hmm. So I think that looking at housing, childcare, and staffing all together probably gives you a better picture of their concerns.
Yeah, I thought that's a great question, and what I was thinking is, this is asked of the businesses, so the businesses might have a different answer than their specific employers, who are really feeling that on an everyday basis. And also, I think employees, in the end, as difficult as make it work somehow, some way, the ones that we have here, so it might not rise to the level for the business owners. But it's a great question.
And it still continues to be one of our key items, especially at the state level for regulatory and policy changes to support more childcare.
We definitely saw when we had a proposal for a childcare and the business owner, you know, in my opinion, they might have gotten a little ahead of themselves in taking, you know, slots for children before it was approved, but they were filled or close to fill. They had quite the list in a very short period of time, so. Real quick, just a couple things I wanted to let our board know is when Claire and I received this and we were taking a look at it, it was very interesting to us because it resonated with so much of the work for the board's benefit that we're working on. All of those bullet points through the Beach District, we have been hitting on, most of them to a pretty great extent, maybe one or two are maybe, you know, we haven't had we've touched on all of them, but some more than others, I guess is what I'm saying. And all of them we're making some progress on. You know, conversations with the tribe, the Conservancy, DNR. I think the 4 Mile Public Access is the one that I think that I'm interested to see as we get more time to be able to put attention to that, what could develop there. And then as far as on Hammond, the Grand Traverse County Road Commission, I think all of you knows how much Claire and I have been working with them and continue to work with them. And I think that you make some excellent points, Warren, and I think we're in a good space in that we did try to make an impact, and we did on the 4 Mile Roundabout, and we're definitely working with their engineers and their administration and their board as far as they're redoing Hammond, and they have the grant funding for 3 Mile between Hammond and South Airport. So that's exciting stuff, and it's not exactly like you can, because you guys know how the road speed limit gets set. You can't just go out and change the speed limit in the state of Michigan. So it's a little, you have to change how you really use the property and do the roads and have those impact then the speed will change with that. So those are great points, and look forward to continuing to work on those.
And we're happy to help with those conversations with the Road Commission if it's of help. Obviously, we work with them closely on a lot of things. I would
Terrific.
say, you know, just anecdotally, you know, we were actually at Alta Vista talking with the owner-developer about, you know, trail access, pedestrian crossing, both going north and going across Hammond. And his big concern is, you know, he pointed east, kind of up that rise out of his driveway, and he said, we got to do something about how fast they come over that hill, because you won't be able to have any kind of.
It's a sight distance problem.
Right, pedestrian crossing, especially school-related pedestrian crossing, unless we can slow them down a little bit.
Yep. Well, great. So go ahead and continue on. It looks like you were getting into the second part here. Oh, sure.
I got a question, I think probably for you in the planning is, you talked about their parcel that the tribe owns on the west side of the state park, on the beach side. And I guess it'd be for East Bay to talk to the tribe and see if they can't get them to donate whatever, but tie that in, and I would envision, if that could be done, that the people that use that would drive in off a 3 Mile 31 intersection when they change the intersection, and then just go to the west, not have another curb cut out across from Denny's there. I mean, we found out what the curb cut did, the way the state park is now on the water side, so.
Yeah. In those meetings, we actually already have one scheduled, and some, I would say, less formal discussions have happened, and we're trying to get kind of the feel, the temperature of their board members. So those will be interesting discussions as we go forward. Another one I just wanted to mention too is the DNR property. We've been working with them heavily, with another developer too that was supposed to develop the hotel just to the west. That has really been put on hiatus, but our work with the DNR continues. One of the, I'll just pull out one as an example, was an online meeting where we all looked at what the interconnectivity and their future plans look like. So where could we build upon that? And Claire was really instrumental in all of us online taking a look at that eastern border to say, okay, how could we move the trail up through there, which the Conservancy is very interested in because it connects Refit and so forth. And there's an issue with the railroad is right there as well. And we've even talked with them about potentially, can we carve out a little property to get beta stops off of the road there? So looking at that's going to be hard, but that's one priority that, and conviction that I think we personally have is, where can we maximize the safety of those beta stops? Because that beta line, if you remember when they piloted that project, who knew if we knew that was even going to be successful? We contracted for $1,000 or $2,000 to help get it off the ground, and it wasn't the second year, and they didn't even need that. They were committed to that project, which is fantastic. And obviously, it's safe, but we want to make it safer and see where we can find those nodes. So even Jens Park, I had said at the beginning, can we utilize that front part to get the, but that unfortunately is right on an arc where it wasn't very safe for them to pull out. But we'll continue to look for those places, and I think the DNR property might be a spot where we can really carve out a little, I'm hoping, on that northeast corner.
Another topic, you talked about traffic calming on Hammond Road. And I keep hearing, and I'm not sure if it's going through or not, but a roundabout here at 3 Mile. And when they look at doing that, and I've thought about that 4 Mile road every time I drive through there, do you think it's possible that they could put some smaller, not big oak trees, but trees in between there? Because trees are calming.
So what we have talked about with respect to the roundabout, the road commission, the last I've spoken with administration, which we're in contact with them regularly, there still is a roundabout there, going to be there, but they're looking at more of a 10-year onset for that roundabout at this point. So understanding that, what we've asked them to do is, obviously, we're going to have some crossings going in there with safe routes to school, and so we've asked them to do that on all 4 sides. They were looking at 2 sides, and I can't remember if you might recall, they did take a look and said, we'll do 4 sides there. The other thing is, we've asked the engineers, look, can we get in any, Claire, what do you call those, dividers, boulevards, thank you. Boulevards there, so that something that we could put in that, we're not going to put in now and take them out in 5 years or 10 years with the roundabout, but could be incorporated into that roundabout. Because what we're looking at is the approach from the east and west, and possibly even the north and south. I don't know. We were really talking about east and west. But once you come in and having those boulevards, and that kind of slows that traffic down. So Claire went through and took a look at the curb cuts, and obviously we're not transportation engineers, but identified some spots and that we wanted them to take a look at, and they're going through the analysis of that with their engineers now.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, Sue?
So just in that same vein, on my way back to the meeting tonight, there was a bicyclist on the west side heading into the roundabout, and it was completely dark. They didn't have any lights. There are no street lights there. There's the one that goes into Crystal Ridge, but it doesn't shine on the road as much as it shines into their subdivision. While we're having these discussions of additional roundabouts, I think we need to have more street lights. It's so dark.
Well, we put all streetlights in and around the roundabout.
Yeah.
So if
And
you're,
it's on the west side, not before you get into the roundabout. It was more
sure.
between where the Grollo house is and heading into the first median into the roundabouts.
Yep.
It's completely black right there, right now. So as a safety feature, with the safe routes to school, with the interconnectors, with the additional traffic and everything that's going on, somehow I think we need to have some more discussion on that part of it too.
Yeah, so if you'll recall, when the roundabout, the 4-mile roundabout was going in, it wasn't going to have pedestrian accommodations. And we stressed for pedestrian accommodations, even in the absence of sidewalks, because they're going to come and we wanted it to be engineered in. They did put those in, actually, we put those in, and we did the lighting with it. And as we are building those trails out, lighting will be one component, along with trees, shrubs, all of those things that help to bring your use in. Part of that too is gonna be, as it's coming through the planning commission, your proposals. We're talking about the types of proposals and what's being built on those properties, the land use. Is it going to be like an auto owners where it's set way back? As beautiful as auto owners is and the great landscaping they have, it's set back. And when it's set back like that, you kind of tend to increase that speed, where, if you have a parcel that's being developed, say like behind Olson's or behind the gas station over there, that's a vacant parcel too, if that development comes in closer to the roads, that's going to, as you guys know, affect how that traffic moves through there. So, yeah. All good points. So great, brings up great discussion and working on a lot of things. Go ahead.
So just so that everybody knows, in Planning Commission in the last few months is the redevelopment of the True North. And then the parcel that comes out where the middle school comes out, they want to do an assisted living facility with memory care. So the parcel development is already potentially happening in this area.
It put big questions like, how did the planning commission go through that?
Yeah, I think that was right now it's just a sketch plan review, and
Yeah,
then
it
they're
was a
going
sketch plan
back.
review, and the problem with that parcel, because we asked them to try to move it closer to Hammond Road, is there's wetlands on the north side of the parcel. There's a 30-foot difference between the back of the parcel and the front of the parcel. The front of the parcel has wetlands, the back of the parcel obviously does not, so moving into the front of the parcel is going to have different environmental stresses than where they have it proposed near the back of the parcel. But, well, exactly, but we did, talk to them about maybe leaving the house that's there and see if we can use it for another use instead of just demoing the house, but that puts it right through their driveway, so that doesn't work well either.
Well, great, all good conversation. Sure, Matt?
Just had a couple of kind of follow-up comments on the regional economic report. Just some questions. The number on page 5, you got some of these high-level numbers. Growth of prime working age population, 35 to 49. We're at 3%. Is that 3%, is that a target to grow by 3% annually or 3% in total by 2030?
It is, the goal is between 2020 and 2030 to increase that by 5% total.
Okay.
We're 3% of the 5%.
Okay.
So it's trending positive.
Right.
And hopefully we will reach or exceed that goal by 2030.
How does that correlate with like the state growth of that same age group?
Yeah, good question. We're one of the few bright spots.
Okay.
Some people, I think Beth at least, and some others may have been involved. When we did the strategic planning for the region, 2019, the key number that really stuck out and got a lot of people's attention was that we, as a region, had lost that age cohort
Right.
between 2010 and 2017, 2018.
Okay.
10% decline, so it's pretty scary, right?
Yeah.
So we've, our economic development initiatives as well as partners, we've all been trying to address that issue. And now the state's actually the point of catching up, and now they're starting to be concerned about that issue too, which is great. But we're one of the few places, us and around Grand Rapids are the places that are growing that age cohort.
Okay. Is it in-state growth, like people moving from one part of the state to the other, or is it actually people coming from out of state?
It's both.
Okay.
I don't remember the number off the top of my head.
Okay.
But there is some interesting studies that tell you who moved here from Macomb County, for example, versus who moved here from Montana.
Okay.
And we do have some of that data.
Another one, this is kind of a chicken and the egg question, but the one to the left of that, the bachelor degree target of 60%, is there any focus on skilled trades, which might feed into easing some of the housing burden?
Well, that is a goal that was updated from the original. The
Okay.
original just talked about bachelor's degrees.
Okay,
So this is bachelor's degrees or post-secondary certificates.
okay,
So that could be any kind of, a number of different skilled trade certificates are included in that tracking.
okay, all right.
Yeah, we certainly want, that is very much chicken and egg. Encouraging workforce development initiatives in skilled trades is the only way long-term to address the housing.
Right. And I was kind of keying in on what Glenn was saying about the childcare thing. I imagine, anybody that's considering moving here that's in a position of needing childcare, that's a go, no-go decision, like, real quick. They figure out that there's nowhere to put their kid and they're not coming, period. So, hopefully as a region, I know it's not in your hands or in our hands, it's a big collective effort and it's a heavy lift, but hopefully that's something that can be addressed. Because once that's out of the way, then you can tackle the housing. On the topic of housing, we've, since I've been on this board, we've had a lot of housing development proposals, things moving forward. You see a lot of housing in the area, rental housing and apartments and things that you would think would kind of fall into this category. Do you have a barometer or something that quantifies what attainable housing is? Like, do you have a definition of what attainable housing is to maybe some of these employers that are taking this?
Yeah, and I won't necessarily get the terminology right, but I would encourage you to look at the executive summary of the Housing North needs assessment that was published.
Okay.
2 months ago, perhaps. It details not just what we mean by these different things, right? So affordable housing versus attainable housing. And that dividing line is basically 80% of the area median income.
Right, okay,
So 60 to 80 would be affordable housing.
right,
Below 60, it's subsidized housing. I believe it's 80 to 120 is considered attainable housing.
okay,
And then that report also details exactly what the gap is in every type of housing in each region of the 10-county area.
yeah, I need to refresh myself. I've seen one of those reports in the past, but, okay.
Isn't that what
And
our,
don't worry, you're going to get a refresher because our December 19th meeting will be all about that. And so we will definitely have all of those questions and terminology at your fingertips or the experts here to go over that for sure. I do think you're exactly right. And a lot of these issues that present themselves, it's a collaboration that's going to make headway in making these not a block from, businesses and development and so forth. The other thing too is all of these topics are really integrative too, right? So when we're talking about attracting, what was the age group again, 30? Then when we, fast forward 2-3 months and we're talking about trails and funding recreation, that all goes into that too, because that subgroup of population highly values those amenities, and that is a portion of economic development and retaining families and so forth. So it's interesting stuff for sure. Okay, with that, you were going to reach on some of the business outreach, I think?
Yeah, just the end of the report details some specific business outreach. You had a couple of bullet points to share there. I will read it.
Yeah, I'll go over it very briefly. So Warren highlighted, some suggested parcels that are ripe for development, some suggested rezoning, some development types. The key piece I kind of wanted to highlight as next steps, essentially, to that is that forming an outreach strategy and a narrative to go with those two districts. So first of all, it's recommended that each of those parcels or sites that we've identified or that you identify in the future, that you use an East Bay branded site development profile, an accompanying guide for development. I think Sam has already been working on something like that. And once you have those site profiles, get them uploaded to your website. Use our website too. We have a Move Your Business webpage, which we already highlight sites on that webpage, so we can do some of that publicizing for you. And then we also recommend that you put them on the Thrive North website as well. So once those sites are profiled and listed publicly in a place that people can easily go to, the next step is then to initiate the outreach to go around that. Publicize that these sites and parcels are ready for development, encourage businesses to consider locating their operations in these zones, in these commercial corridors. So to go with that outreach strategy is formulating your sort of overarching themes and a narrative around, developing a sort of short and compelling narrative around the East Bay Beach District and East Bay Corners. Outlining those sort of broad themes sums up the vision for the improvements that you want to see, which essentially sort of helps make the sell to buy into this vision that you would like to see for the two corridors. So for example, with East Bay Beach District, you want to highlight its potential as a place for tourists and residents alike to enjoy shopping, eating, being outdoors, being active in the corridor. And then encouraging developers, when they're considering locating there, to consider improving transportation routes, traffic calming measures, walkability, putting in place public access to the water, considering public spaces, and then generally considering encouraging new retail and restaurant, and then workforce housing and mixed-use development. And then a similar sort of narrative for East Bay Corners is that it's, all those things like traffic calming and public spaces, but then also that it's primed to be the next major commercial corridor in the Traverse City area. So really getting people or getting developers to buy into this idea of a sort of downtown style commercial development, similar to 8th Street, the 8th Street corridor, as you mentioned. So build that narrative based on what you want to see. And then identify a distribution plan and specific industries or business sectors that align with the township's goals, and target those specific businesses for direct outreach and recruitment. So obviously several ways to reach those audiences. You could reach them via survey or a questionnaire sent to existing businesses and property owners within those corridors. And then also, we would like to encourage you to please use Traverse Connect's publication platforms to spread the word, to highlight those sites. So you can use our weekly newsletter, The Connection, again, use our website, and then we can publicize these via our social media channels and our own in-person conversations that we have every day with potential developers, with businesses moving here. One of the questions we get asked a lot when we speak with businesses considering moving here is, where are your sites and where can we locate our new headquarters or our new factory? So those are sort of our next steps according to the corridor study, but also within this report, if you turn to pages 13 and 14, you'll see just a very general overview of site visits and employer trends that we have noticed within the past year within East Bay Township. So Traverse Connect conducts annual site visits to target employers and businesses within our service area, but specifically within East Bay Township. You'll see a list on page 13 of businesses that we visited this year. So those visits can take the form of investor engagement outreach visits for Traverse Connect members, as well as retention visits, which we do in partnership with the Michigan Economic Development Corporation and Michigan Works. So the businesses that we reach, they're an array of employers, sort of arching across, private sector businesses, early stage growth companies, up to the large manufacturers and institutional employers. And again, sort of similar to our quarterly growth parameters, but more in-depth and obviously conversations. They help us to identify the needs and goals and barriers faced by these employers, and help us to, help come up with solutions or assist with solutions to address these barriers to growth that we hear about. Again, not surprisingly, attracting and retaining talent is an ongoing issue, and then obviously, there's sub-issues with that, like childcare, that come to light. The perceived deficit of a talent pool is particularly felt by manufacturers, which was sort of one trend that we saw quite a bit. What we found was that amongst the manufacturers, that the wages on offer don't match up with what the demand for that talent is calling for. So there's a catch-up that is needed. So the wages, they're not matching the cost of living within the Grand Traverse region, and as a result, attracting talent from locally and especially elsewhere for manufacturers specifically was very difficult. So we have, Traverse Connect has built a manufacturing resources webpage, and we're in the process of, partnering with the Grand Traverse Area Manufacturing Council to roll out these resources and some events in 2024. And then just another common theme that we put into this report is that we've seen, again, interestingly with manufacturers, a trend in mergers and acquisitions, and companies expanding or being bought by often international companies. Overall, it's a very good trend. They're reporting stronger growth, adding more jobs, increasingly more engaged and supporting the communities. So it's a very overall positive trend that was noticed that we didn't necessarily expect to see. Yeah, and I think that is it.
So a lot of details for you to consider. I would say that if there was a final punchline, I would say that bringing it all kind of back full circle, the employers that we've talked to in East Bay Township would, I think, see value in anything we can do that would reinforce the attractiveness of living here, getting more people here. Whether that be trails, connectivity, higher density housing, especially in the East Bay Corners District. We do think that you can take some steps that would reinvest in such a way that it would support your existing neighborhood. And with that, I would say thank you, and I know we took a lot of your time today, but we appreciate the opportunity to work through with this, and we look forward to continuing the partnership.
Great, well, we thank you very much. Any follow-up questions or comments? I think we're all appreciative of it, and it's good work cut out for all of us in the future, so, good.
Great.
Excellent.
Thanks very much.
Absolutely, thank you. Okay, with that, we will move on to Resolution 2023-38, and this is a resolution amending Resolution 2023-35, establishing the fiscal year 2024 wages. You'll recall that this was discussed, it says here on the agenda during the November 2023 Agenda 8C item. We did pass that resolution, and as we talked about, there is, sorry, I'm trying to find the page here, guys, so if anyone...
100 of 104.
Great, thank you. There we go. So with this, you'll recall in that resolution, we did have discussion about, thank you, drive careful. We did have discussion about the director's position. We did transition that position to exempt, but we were looking at the salary, the hourly rate, what that transitioned to, and those looking at the industry regarding it. And on the cover sheet, you'll notice I looked back at, and we pulled some additional comparisons, and I left that 89.5 of the recommendation to stand, particularly because we looked at the neighboring counties' medical director for ambulance services, and that was at 115. We looked at the private emergency services, which ranged from 72.8 to 125, but I would note that that 72.8 did not include the overtime with it. And then from there, we looked at the chiefs in the area, and they ranged from 67 to 110. That 67 was kind of an outlier on the low side. And then most of them, as you'll see, a third was in that 76 to 79, a third was over the 100,000, and the remaining third was between that 80 and 100,000. So with that, the resolution amending the earlier one, which is if we were to make mid-year changes, that's the structure we would take. So there's a good route to follow that through the year. and that resolution is in front of you. It is resolved that it would recognize the wages as approved in 2023-35 and seeks to update the documented wages with this resolution. It approves the wages as outlined in Attachment A to this resolution and approves of the only amended wage as presented in Attachment A, which is for Fund 210's Director within Department 651. And then it says the amended wage for that Fund 210, Department 651, Director is $89.5, which is to commence January 1st, 2024, and to be in effect for fiscal year 2024. So the discussion at the previous meeting was to go back and look at those other comparisons. We did that, pulled them, you have the information here, and then this is the recommendation. So discussion or questions?
So,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I did have a conversation with Director Lemkool just to make sure that he understood that he would, by going this route, he wouldn't be gaining 48 hours a week of vacation. It would go to 40 hours per week, just like the township staffing does, and he is fully aware of it.
Yeah. Tracy, did you have something?
Just resolution number.
Oh, Yep.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if we were,
other questions or clarifications
no, I think.
or a motion?
Make a motion to approve Resolution 2023-38, a resolution amending the Resolution 2023-35, establishing fiscal year 2024 wages.
Support.
Okay, a motion is made by Bartlett, support by Cook. Further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye. Oh, it's a resolution. We'll go ahead and do a roll call vote.
Bartlett.
Yes.
Cook.
Yes.
Walters.
Yes.
Lyle.
Yes.
Escortade.
Yes.
Friend.
Yes. All right, very good, thank you. Public comment, this is the second opportunity for public comment. If there's anyone who would like to address the board, please come up, introduce yourself, and let us hear your perspective. How are you this evening?
Good, how are you?
Good.
My name is Sally Erickson, and I live at 2228 Kakana Court, Traverse City, Michigan. And I'm here because we have 90 acres in your township, my sister and I. It's owned at it's north of the railroad tracks and south of the Send Hilbert beekeeper property, between 4 Mile and 5 Mile. We're also half owners, my sister, my uncle, and I, in a parcel that is on the other side of the tracks, that is nestled in the development that's being done by the hotels. It was originally the Stellar development. My family was involved with Pebblebrook at one time. I tell you this because the parcel that we own with Ernest Shaft and the Wylands, they are interested in selling. And I worked with Glenn a long time ago on crosstown transit and on some different ideas to try and create linkage and crosstown work. And our parcels are right on the TART trail and right on the railroad trail, and might offer some potential that I didn't want us to forget that they're available and that we would be more than open to talking with you guys. And I attended the Planning Commission meeting, and I follow from home to see kind of what's going on. And we would, too, be very interested in higher density on our parcel. We think that the humans need to be just as important as nature and balanced. We have developed a lot of land and have really kept that in our hearts as we've developed our homes and neighborhoods throughout the region. Probably our paramount development was Port of Old Mission at the base of the Old Mission Peninsula. But we did build out at the resort, did Signature Ridge and some different things. We've finished other developments. And we know that the humans are really, really important in how we think through these elements that you're coming up with. And that our parcel is nestled right in the middle of the heart of the urban boundary and a lot of potential for this Township. And I just wanted to tell you that my sister and I want to be a part of the positive solutions. And we do think that higher density on that parcel would be apropos. It was zoned 8. At one point, my dad asked for it to be lowered. And then the parcel that we have 2 parcels that are along the tracks, those were zoned commercial. And we can think about all of those things as a team, because it could be a hub location for a place for children. I mean, there is potential in that area along that tracks and in that commercial corridor for us to nurture things that would be supportive to the community. And so I wanted to come to you guys and to tell you that we are in it we would be helpful, and we'd be very interested in that. And if you would like to talk further, we'd talk further. We've thought very hard about selling the parcel, and just don't really quite know which direction to go, but if we got the right offer, that would happen too. And maybe what we can do is we can help to steer and to move forward, because as a builder and a developer and a mom and a longtime resident of Traverse City and a tree hugger, I think we can do it all, and I think we can do it well. So I just wanted to offer our parcel and have us be in the mix. And I'm disappointed that they're gone. I was hoping that they would be here, because I knew that they were making that presentation today. And so many, I read it, all of that report. And so many of the things that they touched on were in the grand vision, and in so many of the things that we've worked on for so long that I sometimes think that we don't need another study, we just need to do it. So I'm here to help.
Very good. Thank you so much.
Sally?
Okay, with that, upcoming meeting dates, we have that special meeting on December 19th. And I know Sue had said that she won't be able to make it due to another commitment. Is everyone else able to make that meeting? You're up in the air. Okay. I think you were fine with that, Glenn, correct?
As long as I don't get run over on walking, we're all right.
Trace?
I just have to
3 times
move
today.
another meeting.
Okay, and you're, what?
Tried to hit him 3 times today.
Well, you have an opportunity almost every day, so.
I almost got him 3 times in a half hour.
And you were okay on that day as well? Okay, very good. So we'll keep an eye on that, and we're waiting to hear as well from Matt too. So we'll watch that and make sure we have the attendance. Also, I would appreciate if you were to put January 22nd, which is a Monday, 2024. On your calendar for special meeting. We have quite a few things coming up, and so I wanted to take a look at a date that would work, and that would be to do some other topics that we're looking at. So if you could keep that maybe blocked off on your calendar for a 6:30 meeting, that would be helpful. And then we'll let you know as we're getting closer to the beginning of January if we'll need that date. With that, if there's nothing else, we stand adjourned. Everybody have a great night. Have a very Merry Christmas. And, we'll see you before Christmas still yet, so we can always wish you a Merry Christmas again. Have a good evening, everybody.
Okay.